We're not brutalized because we're...
Malcolm X was shot and killed in front of his family on February the 21st in 1965. At the time, X was on stage for a public address in Manhattan. 3 people were convicted of the murder. Netflix's Who Killed Malcolm X contends that 2 of the 3 people convicted of assassinating X could not have been at New York's Audubon Ballroom, where he was murdered. In fact, the film argues that the trigger man who delivered the fatal shot has been living in plain sight as recently as 2 years ago, and the Manhattan District Attorney says there's enough evidence to review the case. Historian Abdur-Rahman Muhammad says he was prompted to conduct his own research after scrapping the official investigation as haphazard at best, botched at worst. For decades, criticism has dogged the police for missing evidence at the crime scene and not interviewing everyone in the audience. Viewers have expressed shock in light of the Netflix program. For Americans, it might not just be a massive mistake in their history books, but yet another example of maleficence in the U.S. justice system.
The central figure in these new documentary series, historian and investigative journalist Abdur-Rahman Mohammed, joins me now. Hi, thank you so much for coming on our show today. So, Manhattan District Attorney is reviewing the process. What are you expecting out of this?
Well, we anticipate that Brother Muhammad Abdulaziz will be completely exonerated for the assassination of Malcolm X. We believe that he and Brother Khalil Islam, who at that time was known as Thomas 15X Johnson, we believe that the district attorney seriously taking a look at this and are sending signals that perhaps they will rectify a terrible wrong that was committed 56 years ago, and that's what we expect that will happen.
Okay, how likely are these to happen, considering the fact that this case is so botched, like for 56 years, as you just said?
Well, we think it will happen this time because of the power of television, the power of like a platform like Netflix, where a case that is so solid, that where the scholarship is so sound and the arguments are so irrefutable, that the weight of history is upon this case, and that it will be corrected.
Okay, were you expecting this to happen? The documentary to get this much attention, and the district attorney, Manhattan District Attorney, to review the case?
You know what? That was always my hope. That was always my hope. I had no idea that it would happen, this quickly, or happen at all. But it was my hope that it would, and I expected that it would, because it's not that the cases that we're making is a weak case. It's just that the case has never really been put before the world in a systematic and methodical manner.
What took so long?
Indifference. Also, there was an element of fear, in the sense that the people who we say actually carried out this crime were very dangerous people, and it just was in no one's interest really to dig it up.
Okay, so you mentioned indifference and fear, but you dedicated more than 30 years of your life uncovering these facts. So tell me how that process worked out for you, and what did you do in the meanwhile? I mean, you started investigating this, and then the documentary comes more than 30 years after that.
Well, in the meanwhile, I lived a life just like any other person. Went to work, raised my family, but I was something of an activist in the community. I was working tirelessly in the Muslim community, in the African American community, and I was doing good work. And like I said, I'm just an average guy living his life. But it had occurred to me, it was obvious to me that I had an opportunity to make something happen here. And when you don't see anyone else doing it, you just kind of do it yourself.
Yeah, you're just an average guy who's uncovering important facts for American history. So yeah, I get that. So tell me how this whole interest started out for you. How did you start investigating Malcolm X's story?
Well, I was only 2 years old when Malcolm X was brutally murdered. But by the time I entered college, around 1980, this was a couple of years after Talmadge Hayer had filed his affidavit. The convicted assassin, the admitted assassin, in 1978, he filed an affidavit naming his co-conspirators, the four co-conspirators in the assassination of Malcolm X. By 1980, he was doing a lot of television appearances in order to exonerate Norman 3X Butler and Thomas 15X Johnson. And this struck me as unbelievable that this man would name the culprits, yet no one would act on his affidavit, and it just lay dormant, just unattended to.
Okay, but I wonder why you mentioned. Please.
Let me clarify this as well. By around 1986 or so, after I became a Muslim, I began to circulate amongst the community, and I began to hear certain things that allowed me to put pieces together, and that's when it really became plausible in my mind that I could solve this.
You were dedicated, but not a lot of people were. And you mentioned the indifference, which is really interesting for me, because when you look at the widespread, nationwide interest, obsession into like Kennedy assassination or Tupac Shakur, killing of Tupac Shakur, I wonder why there was this much indifference towards Malcolm X's murder.
Well, unfortunately, because it was looked upon as a case of what you call black on black crime. It just wasn't taken seriously. It was treated as just intertribal warfare, and it really wasn't, taken as the brutal assassination, the brutal murder of a national figure like a Kennedy or Dr. King. It was just treated as Malcolm was just. Well, Matt, you have to understand that back in 1965, Malcolm was not a beloved figure. He was not someone that law enforcement wanted to, get to the bottom of his assassination. He was something of a reviled figure. He was a feared personality, and really, it was a sense of good riddance. Good riddance,
Yeah. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Abdur-Rahman Muhammad, good to listen to your journey today. Thank you so much for sharing it with us on Showcase.